Hello once again from the Prim Reaper. This video is going to address something specific and something broad, which is something I feel like I'm doing a lot lately. Let's not have a long pointless preamble on this and get right into it. So the specific thing I've been seeing a lot lately is the debate from people over the severity of the coronavirus and on other various topics like whether we should continue to remain at home and try to wait out the spread of the virus, whether we should reopen businesses due to the damage this is doing to the economy, and the precedent this all sets for government surveillance of our activities. However, the debate hasn't looked nearly so civilized. The debate has looked a little more like this. If you're not willing to stay home, then pick 3 people from your circle of acquaintances to die because you obviously care more about money than about human lives. Your grandfather had to go to war and you can't even sit on the couch to save their lives, you greedy, selfish idiots. They say we can't go out. It's illegal and against the Constitution. Freedom above all else. There's nothing to be afraid of. Open up every single job right now because I need a haircut. COVID is just a bad flu and there's nothing to be afraid of. They are literally planning to inject us with chips when they create the vaccine for the virus. COVID is caused by toxins in the air produced by 5G technology, and the government is coming to control all our lives. We have to go live off-grid in a bunker in the forest because that's the only way we'll be safe. I swear to God, my head spins listening to all of this. It's all the most ridiculous, polarizing, over-exaggerated crap that fails to take into account any other information other than what the individual already believes. I see it all the time. Then, one of the most frustrating things about it all is that these people will then often wonder why they just never seem to have any success in changing the other side's mind about anything. Must be because they're just close-minded sheep, right? Okay, putting aside my anguished sass for a moment, let's take some time and try to address this specific situation first before moving on to more general stuff. Ideally, I would want to begin by saying, yes, it is true that not all ideas hold equal weight as a general statement, though I don't want to give any more fuel to those making the style of arguments I just quoted above to think, see, those other people don't have any weight. So no, for now, let's just approach this slow and steady. First of all, there are valid concerns and overblown fears in each of these 3 categories. For the first person, yes, it is valid to be worried about COVID-19. It has proven to be a dangerous disease that spreads with relative ease through communities that aren't being careful about it. And yes, while the rate of death does fall disproportionately on the elderly, it has been shown to have potential long-term health effects even in those who do survive. Furthermore, the ease with which it spreads and the relatively long incubation period means that it is easy for those who aren't particularly susceptible to life-threatening complications to spread it to those who are. Furthermore, because it is a novel virus, there is still a lot that we don't know about it. We don't know for certain if or how long catching the virus then confers immunity to catching it a second time, or if any of these long-term complications that we're seeing are permanent, or even the exact methods of transmission of the virus. We're hearing a lot of different conflicting information about this because many different people are working on these mysteries in different environments and seeing different results. I'm not denying that some areas may be obfuscating their results and their death tolls for political reasons as well. So with all of these unknowns, and with the knowns being that there are people who are in danger from this thing, it is sensible to want to take precautions to avoid contracting and spreading this disease. What is not valid is to act like this disease is equivalent to the Black Plague. Many people are comparing it to the Spanish flu, and even that doesn't seem like a particularly fair comparison, given that that particular virus often killed the strong, young, and healthy. What is not valid is to act like people are behaving irresponsibly if they go outside for fresh air while maintaining distance from others. What is not valid is to belittle the fact that some people are having great difficulty with maintaining distance from their friends and family. For many people, it's not as easy as just staying inside and enjoying their personal activities. Many people struggle with not having that connection, and it's incredibly difficult for them to continue to maintain that separation. Insulting people who decide to take the risk and see their loved ones is not going to improve anything. On to the next category. It is valid for people to be concerned about being forced to stay in their homes under certain levels of threat. We saw in China how people were often forced to stay in their homes under threat of gunpoint, and it's fair to feel that that is a scary and unacceptable loss of liberty. It's fair to feel like the police should have no right to approach you and tell you to go home if you're outside getting exercise while keeping well away from other people. It's fair to feel like there is a certain limit to the freedom that one should have to give up as long as they are keeping to other health guidelines. It is also entirely fair for people to be afraid of the devastation that the COVID lockdown is having on their livelihoods. Many people are getting government assistance in some form or another, but for many people, that is simply not enough. There are several who are legitimately afraid of permanently shuttering their businesses, going into incredible amounts of debt, and even being unable to keep food on their tables. The suicide rates due to poverty and poor mental health as a result of all this is expected to continue to increase as this situation continues. For many people, especially the young and healthy, the threat of COVID is less severe than the threat of the lockdown to their financial stability and their future careers. All of these are legitimate concerns, and acting like these people are only selfishly worried about the bottom line at the expense of the health of others is a massive and uncharitable oversimplification. However, this is not to say there is not a limit. People demanding that others go back to work and risk their lives just so that they don't have to go through certain inconveniences, that is selfish. Also, pretending like COVID is not something that we ought to be concerned about, or worse, that it's a hoax, is also absurd. People going out of their way to attempt to contract the disease, well, let's just say they're not doing this under direct medical supervision to try to get immunity so that they can safely resume their lives. No, they're generally doing it by doing stupid things like licking toilet seats and asking others to cough on them, and are continuing to go about their lives in public, likely until they show symptoms, and possibly even then. And they're almost certainly not wearing masks as they do this. There's also a reasonable boundary between expecting to reopen businesses with certain restrictions in place that allow for as much social distancing as possible while still allowing workers to get an income, and expecting everything to just open up willy-nilly with zero restrictions like life before the virus. Anyway, moving on to the last category. You know what? I'm not going to act like every world government is always equally honest and transparent with their people. Even if a government is not necessarily strictly operating under a cover of mystery, let alone governments committing actual wrongs against their people. The nature of democracy often means that some people will see a leader be elected that they are not happy with, which may mean that they will be less likely to trust the intentions of their leader in government. Some people, particularly those prone to catastrophizing, may take this fear to the extreme, and for them, the idea to live off the grid away from it all may be a comforting thought. But moving on to the not-so-valid concerns, remember when I mentioned that not all ideas hold equal weight? Well, suffice it to say that someone trying to claim that a virus, something that we know the mechanism for how it enters and attacks the body, is a toxin produced by 5G technology, is someone who is misinformed. People who believe that a vaccine for this virus is a cover to inject tracking chips when we all walk around willingly giving constant information to what is effectively a tracking chip in our pockets is obviously dealing with an irrational fear. However, not only are they remaining a vector for viral spread by avoiding vaccination, when it is released, of course, they may be spreading dangerous misinformation to others that could scare them off from getting protected from illness as well. However, guess what isn't going to be the best way to change the mind of someone like this? Making fun of them, calling them idiots, telling them to do their research. They already feel they've done their research by listening to the people that told them these conspiracy theories in the first place. These people are scared of what they do not know, and belittling them only tends to entrench them further into their views. The best way to challenge them is to gradually, and as gently and respectfully as you can muster, poke holes in their theories until they realize there's not enough left to hold water. Unfortunately, even then, some of them might demur. Being entrenched in one's views is not something that anyone who watches my channel should be unfamiliar with. We talk about those sorts of people all the time. But I digress. What I've been trying to show here is that there are nuances to all of this. Every aspect of this discussion going on right now is complicated and has many different sides to it. But despite that, there are several people who act like it is the simplest situation in the world and that everyone needs to just stay home or just open up the country without any additional thoughts at all, and that anyone who believes otherwise is obviously definitely wrong and needs to go F themselves. And this has become a pattern endemic to nearly all of our socio-political discussions, hasn't it? I'm really trying to not fall victim to the viewing one's youth through rose-colored glasses thing here, but I legitimately feel like this wasn't quite as bad just 10 to 15 years ago. Of course, there were people who fell on different ends of the political spectrum, but people were able to have civilized discourse about the issues without falling into calling each other Nazi fascist white supremacists or pinko communist scum or whatever else for deigning to hold an alternate viewpoint. Instead, all of our discussions on whatever issues seem absurdly prone to histrionic insults and accusations. Someone agrees with Trump on his opinion about Idahoan corn or something, and they're a rapist supporting white supremacist. Someone appreciates Bernie Sanders' view on healthcare, and they're a filthy communist who just wants to live off handouts. Kill all men was just trending again on Twitter. Believe all women. All cops are bastards. All of it is just these easy, repeatable sound bites that people can regurgitate on social media against certain groups or against those who disagree with them to elevate themselves to being a better person without all that pesky business of actually having to engage in self-improvement. Make no mistake, I'm not trying to say we have to go full enlightened centrist here and that anything outside of the middle perspective is bad. Having different political views is not only healthy, but important. It provides great checks and balances that help us to recognize problems within our own sides that we might otherwise be blind to. All I'm saying is that it's important to approach these discussions in a way that helps us to learn, grow, and build understanding of the issues involved, rather than beating our chests about, their side wrong, my side good, their side stupid idiot doo-doo heads, and stupid idiot doo-doo heads allowed to be smashed. What's worse, though, is that all these people spreading these oversimplified arguments then go on to influence other people to do the same thing. I've steadily watched several people I know become more and more polarized, start posting more and more black and white thinking memes and shared Facebook and Twitter posts, or worse yet, boomer political comics, that they didn't even write themselves. It's all easy, unthinking, uncritical, yet insulting and patronizing rhetoric. And as much as we might like to attribute this solely to social media, we're seeing it almost just as much in person as well. But you know what? We don't have to just sit back and be okay with this and accept that it's just the new way of relating to others now. We might not always be able to challenge people online, where it's super easy to block anyone who has the audacity to disagree with you, but usually if you can manage to challenge someone one-on-one who is expressing these kinds of polarized views, or even just someone who is starting to slip into looking at things with a lack of nuance, you can have some measure of luck reversing that process. Not always. Again, let's be real, we already talked about people with entrenched views, but definitely some of the time. Take that god-awful consent is as simple as tea video from a few years back. You know, the one that completely dumbs down an incredibly complex social dance to make it seem like there's no gray area at all. Yeah, I had someone at work come up to me talking about how they appreciated it and wanted to make use of it in training materials. I promptly told them, in a gentle and respectful way, of course, I very much appreciate all of my coworkers and generally feel safe to challenge them on things, that I thought the video turned a very gray subject into a black and white one, and that it wasn't a good idea to oversimplify things. I remember providing a few examples to counter it. What if someone is in the middle of drinking the tea, becomes bored, but simply decides not to say anything and keep drinking the tea anyway because, hey, might as well? What if someone says that they want the tea and enjoys it well enough during, but then afterwards wishes they didn't drink the tea? What if a woman's husband wants to share tea and she doesn't really feel like it at the moment, but she knows it makes him happy, so she agrees to have some anyway? What if someone, by all accounts, believes the other person wants the tea and proceeds with giving it to them, but then afterwards the other person says that they didn't want to drink it after all? It led to a really good discussion about the importance of nuance and how oversimplifying things to try to make some sort of point just misses these kinds of scenarios and may even result in people feeling worse about something than they otherwise might have. And this is the same kind of discussion I encourage you to have with anyone else you know who is approaching a situation with a lack of nuance. Furthermore, I encourage you to check yourself. Check in with your own biases. Look at where you might be falling into the trap of oversimplifying things. Ask other people to point it out for you. Ask yourself why you might be doing that and what it does for you. For example, it can feel deceptively good to believe that you're on the right side of history and that everyone else is just a monster or an idiot or a bigot or whatever else. It can make you feel intelligent to think that you have all the answers or that you may have found some secret back door that they are just trying to keep from the public and that everyone else is just ignorant. But please try to resist it as much as possible. It leads to richer discussions all around, and it can be freeing to realize that there is more to things than it may seem at first, and that we're all just trying to figure things out together, rather than everyone else being literally Hitler who hates everyone and everything else. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in the next one.